Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering human creativity. I am Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Rebecca Macleod, who serves as the president of the American String Teachers Association, as well as professor of music education at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's so great to have you on the show. Obviously, ASTA is one of our wonderful partners at Arts Engines, but not only that, one of the originating partners of the Sphinx organization going back to its inaugural year. And obviously, as a violinist, I've been a long time just, member and beneficiary of the impact of ASTA. So I'm excited to talk to you about all of those types of things. But thought we would kind of just delve right in about teachers and music education and what's going on in the field, all of that. People talk about shortages, things like that. So I was wondering, just to kind of start off, just kind of where do you view things on kind of that 30,000 foot level? Where do you feel like we're at right now?
Yeah, we are definitely experiencing a music teacher shortage. It's part of a larger thing that has happened as a result of the pandemic, because we know that we're part of the Great Resignation. People have really reevaluated their life, and two industries I think were probably hit the hardest, and those were healthcare and education. And so we are seeing a couple of things that are impacting the availability of educators in general, and then of course music teachers, which are the fact that we have a lot of teachers who are nearing retirement age. It looks like the data says that quite a few of our teachers are long timers. And so they're nearing retirement age. We have the fact that there was the big resignation and teachers have chosen to potentially leave the field. We're also seeing drops in interest in becoming a teacher. And we also have a lower birth rate of the age bracket that's entering college. So all of these things are contributing all at the same time to fewer people entering the field.
Wow, that sounds like it's just like this storm of impact. I wasn't aware, it's interesting because you hear about these things, but then you don't realize there's all of these multiple factors of going into it. So obviously some of those I would think like, a birth rate or something, they're kind of greater than we might be able to do through our advocacy or through our programming and our work. And so I guess I'm curious then as you look at it with kind of both hats, both in terms of ASTA and looking at the work of ASTA, but then also looking just in terms of the academic environment, where do you feel are the areas that you're able to most impact, and or that you think those in our audience who are, in their own academic institutions or otherwise can impact? What can we do?
I think in my mind, there are two things we can do. And I also hope that there'll be more ideas that come out of a project that ASTA has engaged in with a lot of other collaborators. And it's the music teacher, a coalition on the music teacher shortage. And that is being headed up by Bob Morrison. And there are about 20 different organizations that are pulling resources, the National Association for Music Education, the NAMM Foundation. I mean, there are many, many organizations coming together to discuss issues and what we can do about the music teacher shortage. I think that the most important thing that we need to do is recognize that there's a narrative about teaching being a difficult space right now that might not be accurate. I think we're inundated with information, and what we've found out from some of the work of the coalition and some data that will be forthcoming is the majority of music teachers are actually happy. And when you ask them in a survey, would you make the same choice again? The majority of them, more than 75%, say, yes, I would do this again. Yet when we ask them, would you ask one of your students or encourage them to become a music teacher? 90% of those same people say no. So we
Wow.
don't know why. We have to dig into
Right.
that.
Wow. Is there any kind of, best guesses as to where that disconnect lies?
I really, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of confounding. We need follow-up questions. I mean, we need to ask them not just would you, but why? Why or why not?
Right.
If you're happy, then do you think that they won't be happy? So I think there's a narrative out there that we need to consider. I think there have been so many barriers. So the second most important thing is reducing barriers of access to becoming a musician. Because, even though the research says that more than 92% of all schools provide access to music instruction, but when you kind of dig into school systems and how students have access or don't to the arts, there are a lot of contributing factors. So the school may have an arts program, but that doesn't mean the student has access to it. They may not be able to afford an instrument. They may be transient. So we know that students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds move more frequently. And the model that we have in the public schools in the United States, which is actually a beautiful model, we have the best model in the world. I mean, we're the only country that has this level of music instruction in the public school day. You just don't find it anywhere else. And I've been in many international conferences, and we're reminded regularly that we have a beautiful system. So even though we want it to be more, it is a beautiful system. But within that system, maybe you're moving from school to school and it's an ensemble-based system. So if you don't onboard in 5th or 6th grade, well, you didn't get on the orchestra bus or you didn't get on the band bus, and there aren't really any other opportunities. So as students continue through the program, they keep stopping and getting off the bus, but nobody else can get on. And I
Gotcha.
think that's a huge problem with the music teacher workforce.
Gotcha. And is there, as you look at that, and we also think about, because of course, and especially in recent years, issues relating to diversity and inclusion have come much more to light, and many industries are looking and building changes. Do you think there are, looking at that and socioeconomic and or just cultural background of teachers and those who have access, again, are there things that we can do to decrease the barriers that do exist for access?
I could spend a very long time talking about this. I I think the number one thing is providing more entry points, not just at the immediate um, access point. I think there should be more opportunities for people to engage in music at different levels, because in any other type of instruction, arts instruction, like what we know again from the data is that about 60% of students participate in music programs at that early middle school level. By the time they get high school, there's only 18% left participating.
Wow.
Whereas in the arts, they see it actually becomes bigger because you can enter an art class at any point in time. But our instruction tends to be sequential, and we don't have room for more beginner entry points. So that's one problem.
Yeah.
Um,
And sorry,
Another,
because I just wanted to make sure I got that number correctly, because I was not familiar with that we really go in middle school, we go from 60% participation rate down to 18 by high school.
yeah, and I mean, we need to dig into why. For many, many years, and this could be true. A lot of people have hypothesized that the reason for the decline in participation is interest level or relevancy across cultures, and that might be a piece of it. I think there's a lot of competition at the high school level when you get into scheduling, with AP. I think people don't always feel welcome in the space. Maybe our recruitment models are not open, welcoming to everyone. I just finished a presentation today about, with a group of college students, has anybody ever felt unwelcome in a space and you walked in and you thought to yourself, wow, I really don't belong here? And I had an experience like that's so vivid to me, where I accidentally walked into a fighting ring. I thought I was joining a gym, right? And I walked in and I thought everybody stopped and turned and looked at me. And I remember thinking, like, I don't belong here. And I realized, though, in that moment, that that's how kids might feel at school. That's how kids could feel in my musical space if I'm not creating a space where everyone has representation, where they have people that care about them, that they can relate to. So that's a piece of it. I think having the finances and the access to an instrument, and not just any instrument, right? But an instrument that's going to allow you to be competitive.
Mhm. Yeah.
Wow. But we also have, issues that we're grappling with in the higher ed level. I mean, I am a music teacher educator, where we say to ourselves, are these entry requirements barriers?
Mhm. Yeah.
You know,
Totally. Wow. Well, it's just fascinating. And I love how you articulated just some of these core aspects going on, but also illuminated, here are some of the areas that we can work. And I know for sure there are those in our audience who are in some different positions where they can really take some steps in some of these areas. Unfortunately, we are just about out of time, but I always like to ask for all of my guests, in this work, as we can see, there's got to be tough days and some days where it's like, oh, the obstacles seem insurmountable. As a leader, where do you turn for inspiration, for strength during the toughest of times?
well, I mean, I turn to organizations, and the role of organizations is to bring together volunteers who have shared goals and shared visions. And the reason we join our organizations and do collaborations is so we can work together towards a common goal that we wouldn't be able to do by ourselves. And so for me, inspiration is finding community and finding partners like Sphinx, like Arts Engine, and working together to try to overcome some of the challenges that we face.
Rebecca Macleod, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.